All right, boys and girls, welcome back to the O2 Dyna build. Today, we are gonna make some serious progress on this bike. I know I said in the last video that we were gonna make a lot of progress, and it felt like we did, but when I edited the video, maybe it didn't look like we made quite as much progress as we did. But this one, I'm definitely not over-promising. We are gonna get the freshly redone wheels put on this bike. We're gonna get freshly redone calipers, front and rear, put on this bike. We're gonna have this thing looking like a Dyna again. I think we're probably gonna get our rear fender put on too. Maybe I gave some of that away in the thumbnail, I don't know, but we've got some killer parts to install today to get prepped for what comes next. So by the end of this video, this bike is gonna be looking very, very different, and I am super stoked about it. So take a look. This is gonna be the last view of the whole bike with the current setup and the temporary wheels on, because we've got some awesome parts to go on and we're gonna get started. So we'll go over to the workbench, we'll take a look at the wheels, we'll get them ready to put on, and we'll make it happen. So let's go. All right, well, here they are, chrome 13-spoke mags. We said in the first part of this series that we were getting the wheels done, and I asked y'all to guess what that meant. I think a lot of you knew, based on everything else we were doing on the bike, that getting the wheels chromed was what it was gonna be. Well, here they are for you to see, and I gotta tell you, these came out perfect. These are so nice. I don't even know if the camera's gonna do it justice of just how well the light reflects off of here. This really is a perfect mirror finish on these wheels. They're absolutely beautiful. So all I've done so far is off camera, we got the bearings installed. It's just something I figured you guys didn't need to watch, needed to do a little bit of prep on the hubs to get that done after the chroming. So that's in, they're good, and they're ready. We're gonna do most of the setup on these wheels over at the tire machine, but I just wanted to set them up here so you guys could see them and take them in all their glory. But the one thing I'm gonna do while we're over here, because it's, I guess, just as easy, is we gotta put valve stems in these wheels. We've got new ones. These are nice little billet polished aluminum, pretty cool. So I'm gonna throw these in, and then we'll head over to the tire machine and we will get rotors, sprocket, all that set up, and obviously get tires on these, and then we'll get them on the bike, and well, we'll see how it looks. All right, so I've got the rear wheel set up over here in the tire machine. I'm gonna go ahead and do the rotors and sprocket first before I do the tires, just because it's easier to let the rear wheel or the front wheel be clamped in the machine to tighten all the hardware down. Certainly can be done with the tire on, so I just find it easier this way. So I've got this rotor side up at the moment, so we're gonna start with the rotor. Now, a little side note here, I have already gone through and run a thread chaser through all the threads on both wheels, kind of did that and got everything prepped while we were doing the bearings. Hugely important step. You absolutely, anytime a wheel gets powder coated, polished, anything like that, you wanna make sure that any junk that got in those threads you get out, because the last thing you wanna do is gall up a bolt inside your freshly done wheel. It's a bad day. So we've got matching rotors for front and rear. This is the rear one. TC Bros, this is a basic part. These are pretty inexpensive as rotors go, or as nice rotors go, I guess I should say. Certainly less expensive than Lindell, less expensive than Galfer. They're nice, they're functional. This is a bike that is gonna get more miles in the parking lot than it will on the road. So we picked brake rotors accordingly. So these are perfect for this application, and they look good too. So that's what we're gonna install. So we'll get this dropped on here. And we've got, just like everywhere else, ARP 12-point hardware to attach this. So I'm gonna get these put on and torqued down, and then we'll flip it over and move to the other side. All right, moving over to the Sprocket side. Went a little different route for the Sprocket and went with a super premium part here, which I'm pretty stoked on. Got a Lindell Sprocket. Now, why did we go with the super, super high-end Sprocket? Well, the way this bike is gonna be ridden, used and abused, we wanted a Sprocket that was, number one, not only gonna stand up to that abuse, but number two, one of the nice features of the Lindell Sprocket is that the carrier and the sprocket ring itself are removable, separatable. They can be separated, does that make sense? So if you wear this out, you can replace just this outer ring without having to buy the carrier as well. So this is an expensive part, it's probably around 500 bucks, but you can replace this outer drive ring for, I wanna say, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 150. So that's a lot more attractive, I think, if you're somebody who might be wearing one of these out. This is aluminum instead of steel, but it's a strong aluminum that is built to stand up to this. So hopefully it's gonna do the job, and it's certainly gonna look right. So Lindell's chrome 13 spoke carrier is gonna perfectly match an index on this wheel, and it's just gonna look awesome. So that's the Sprocket that's gonna go on. We've got a spacer to go behind it that's gonna line up with our transmission sprocket. And then one more detail for this, rather than using just standard ARP bolts on this, we've got an ARP stud kit. So this is one of the studs. Hopefully that'll focus, and you can see it's coarse threaded on this side to go into the wheel, and it's fine threaded, stronger on this side, and it's got an ARP 12-point nut to attach it with. So if you're somebody who has broken or regularly breaks these, this might be an option to try. I've got limited experience with these, but used them before and they seem to stand up well, so we're gonna run them again here. So these are gonna get red Loctited into the wheel, and then we'll put the sprocket on and we'll put the nuts and lock washers on as well. So I'll get that going. All right, sprocket's on and secure. Time to get a tire mounted on here. All right, tires on, do a quick balance on this, and let's get this thing on the bike. All right, before we get the rear wheel put in, I think it's probably a good time to get the fender put on. And one quick note too, the keen observers will note that the primary is disassembled. No, you did not miss a video and we didn't skip anything. We're filming and posting videos a little bit out of order. So we do have footage on doing the primary teardown. That's gonna be included when we do the chain kit install, which will be probably the video after this. So you'll see all that footage in an upcoming video, so don't worry, didn't miss anything. As far as the fender goes, let's take a look. So, OE fender, it's been cut and modified for wheelies. And believe me, if you've seen Jeff on his other bike, the other Dyna we did for him, he's gonna scrape the shit out of this, which is why there's no paint on it, because it'd be coming off anyway. So this makes sense to me. I think it looks pretty good. We didn't do it. Jeff had somebody take care of it. They put a support in here too. Hope you can see that. It's all welded in. I think a nice job was done on it. It's maybe a little bit sacrilege to be hacking up an OE Concord Purple Fender, but number one, it's your bike, you can do what you want. And number two, it's not exactly in perfect shape. It's got some scratches here on the top. It's got some other little imperfections. No dents, it's straight. We're gonna get a little work done on this too. Once everything's back together, we'll get the bike detailed, paint corrected, and get it looking as good as possible. So that's the story on the Fender. Anyway, enough talking, let's get this on. All right, there we go. Fender's on, ready to go. All right, let's get this wheel on, but first, give you guys a sneak peek at the caliper to go on here. So this is actually the caliper that came off the bike. It's just been stripped and polished and looks basically like chrome, if you ask me. Super killer, definitely gonna match the wheels really well. This was done by NBP Finishing. They did the wheels as well and did an awesome job, if you ask me. We've got a replacement decal to go on here. This obviously comes off to do the stripping and polishing. So we'll get that replaced. We got all the hardware cleaned up, got the caliper rebuilt, got a new set of pads in there, ready to go on. All right, so with that in place, let's grab the wheel. Works. Looks killer. All right, so with the wheel on, I guess we can move over to the front, get that one put on too. All right, ready to rock and roll on this front wheel. So we've got matching 11.8 or 300 millimeter rotors to go on here. Same for both sides, obviously. So those are just gonna drop on. And a special little touch. For the longest time, there were very few options for rotor hardware on a narrow glide bike. You'll see when this goes on, the clearance between the wheel and the front end is negligible. So you can't run an ARP bolt. You're pretty much locked into using basically the original factory bolt, which is like a button head kind of bolt. You could find like a stainless replacement or something like that, but there weren't really a lot of options until now. Arlen Ness just this year has released a whole bunch of this whole shot titanium hardware. Comes in gold, polished, and black, if I'm not mistaken. Super light, it's all titanium. So they've got these low profile bolts that work on these wheels. They've got bolts that work on the lug mounted rotors for both Dynas, like a Lowrider S, and also for baggers. And they just released a whole bunch of banjo bolts and bleeder banjo bolts for bagger brakes that are just like this. So super, super nice. I'm super glad they did this. I always thought putting all this brand new stuff, even on like wheels we powder coat, and then you put old hardware on, just kind of looks bad. Or even if you're putting new hardware on, it's just zinc, crappy hardware. But these are awesome. So I'm gonna Loctite these up, put them in, torque them. We'll do both sides. We'll get a tire put on. We'll get this on the bike. All right, let's get this wheel put in. I mean, come on. How good does that look? Oof. All right, so our front wheel as installed as it's gonna get for now. Before we tighten down the clamp on this leg, I wanna get our calipers put in place, make sure all our spacing is good. We'll get all that stuff hooked up. We've also got a front fender to get put on here, which I think we'll do. So I think from here, now that we got both wheels mounted up, I'm gonna admire our handiwork. We're about done for the day. And we're gonna come back tomorrow morning and get these brakes on and get everything plumbed and all hooked up. So that is gonna be, like I said, tomorrow for us, but for you guys, it's gonna be, I don't know, about 2 seconds. So stick around and we'll make some progress. All right, let's go ahead and get some brake calipers put on this bike. So we've got a set of OE bagger Brembos, just like the rear, that have been stripped and polished. New set of pads, new piston seals, all that installed. All we're missing is the emblems. Like I said, we'll get those from the dealership and get them put on before the bike goes out the door, but just look at this. Gorgeous, gorgeous polishing job. So let's get it put on. Stainless, ARP 12 points. Got to do that too. And we've got some chrome bleeder banjo bolts here. These are just kind of generic jobs from Drag Specialties. I've got some upgraded ones that I think are gonna look even nicer. They're just on back order, but we'll put these on and maybe some point when the other ones come in, we'll swap them out. We'll see how that goes. And just got the bleeder to put in here. All right, just put those in hand tight for now. Let's go over, do the other side. All right, got that one on. One minor detail I forgot on the other side, but I won't forget here. We've got chrome screens to go on. Oh, beautiful. Let me put that on the other side. We'll keep moving. All right, as long as we're up here, might as well get a front fender put on. It's been long enough. All right, looking pretty good. So the last thing I want to do up here before we start to put brake fluid in, which unfortunately I can't do yet, like I mentioned, because I don't have a reservoir for the master cylinder. So hopefully soon on that. But the last thing I want to do before we put fluid in is, if you recall, I left the pinch bolt on this side undone. I just want to make sure that our brake is perfectly aligned over here. It looks almost exactly perfect. I think I just got to move it just the slightest, maybe half a mil. And then we can tighten this down. So we're looking pretty good, and I'm just gonna make that adjustment, tighten this, and we'll move to the rear. And back there, we've got a new brake line to put on, and we're actually gonna get fluid in it and get it bled. So looking forward to that, so stick around. All right, let's go ahead and get this rear brake set up. So I've got a new braided stainless hose, just like the front ones, to go on here. But before I put that on, I want to take a look inside this master cylinder and see how this fluid looks and see what we're working with. Obviously, we're going to clean this out and get the fluid out of here rather than pumping old fluid through, you know, a rebuilt caliper and a brand new line. But even before we do that, I just want to get a sense and see, are we just looking at old fluid, or are we looking at more than old fluid? Maybe chunks and debris and, you know, a whole bunch of nastiness. So hopefully it's either clean or just dirty and nothing worse. Well, it's empty is what it is, which I guess makes sense. We've had this disconnected, although not that much came out of here, but I guess while we were disassembling this, probably most of the fluid came out. But the master cylinder actually looks really clean. This brake fluid was probably done pretty recently before we got here, so that's not so bad. So I guess what I'm gonna do is get this brake line removed, we'll get the new one put on, and we'll get everything hooked up and start to push some fluid through here. All right, I guess before we start getting our fluid filled, it'd probably be helpful to actually have a brake pedal. I would think so. So let's put that on. We've got that here ready to go. If we got foot pegs to go on, we'll do that later. Just got the pedal itself polished up, so looks pretty good. Just get this put on and we will continue on. Okay. And that's gonna go right there. All right, excellent. Perfect. Okay, so now the brake pedal in place. Come over here, get this line disconnected, get some new fluid in here, get a new line put on. Like I said, make it happen. All right, let's go ahead and get this line swapped out. All right, and then we just got a clamp on the back side here we just got to take off. All right, there we go. So a couple things we gotta reuse here is our brake light switch. We're gonna reuse this because it works. And this clamp we're gonna move over and put onto the new brake line. All right, so here's the new brake line, the brake light switch put in and the clamp on there. Just gonna go ahead and get this started in here. All right. All right, so, well, just let that guy hang there. Just gonna get the banjo bolt cleaned up, throw some new washers on it, and we'll get the line hooked up on both sides. All right, line hooked up. Just gotta reach under here and get the switch wires for the brake light switch hooked back up. And good to go. Let's get some fluid in this, get it bled. see what we got. Oop, lost my line. All right, I think we're starting to get a little bit of a pedal. Yeah. All right, not there yet, but making progress. There we go. That's what I like to see. All right, pretty easy. Love bleeding brakes that don't have ABS. Really not very far to go. Also helps that the bleeder is actually at the top of the system on this, which makes it much easier to get the air out. So 2 little cycles with a vacuum bleeder, and I guess you can't see the pedal, but it's pretty good. So just for good measure, what I like to do is just give it a couple of manual bleeds. So I'm gonna hold the brake pedal down, open that up, close it, pump it up again. And what I'm looking for is, it's gonna be hard for you to see this anyway, but I'm looking for no air bubbles in here. You're gonna see some air bubbles because they get trapped in here, but what you wanna see is no air bubbles actually coming out of here. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, do it again. All right, that was perfect. Beautiful. Top off the brake fluid. All right. And we're good to go. All right. Gasket's nice and clean. Throw that on. And our cover and screws. Perfect. Well, I think that is going to do it on this episode of the O2 Dyna build. We set out to get wheels done and brakes done, and mostly got that accomplished. Obviously, still waiting on my reservoir mount to get that done, but otherwise, we've got a bike that's looking like a bike again. I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of take a step back and look at this whole thing, but holy shit, this bike is coming together. Really very little left to the imagination at this point. Battery box, seat, pipe, air cleaner. Really not a lot that's left to go on this bike. Obviously, we've got work to do on the other side, and that's gonna be the next video. We're probably gonna get started on that right now, so hopefully we'll have another video coming soon on this project. But I really hope you guys are digging this one, because I definitely am. We've put a lot of time, and the customers put a lot of money into this bike. And obviously, you know, when you make that kind of investment, you want it to be perfect, and I think this bike basically is. There's very little that I would change about what we've done so far, so I really gotta say, I'm thrilled with it. Well, I guess what's not to be thrilled about? So, in any event, I appreciate you all watching as always, and well, we'll see you on the next one, I guess.